Ya Google Maps'teki garip şeyler değil mi? Bak bu çok ilginç bu olay ya.
Used to be able to catch this guy just absolutely shitting himself on these stairs. I like this one a lot. Flying rabbit. So there's this road in Poland where you'll come up to this rabbit and it kind of just looks like it gets up and flies away. It's pretty cool. It's pretty funny. What's probably going on here is this rabbit is getting hit by the Google car. It's kind of crazy too because he gets air. Big
What the fuck?
Rabbit. So in northern Italy, there's this mountain called the Fava Mountain.
Reklamı
And this
sever
art
misin
group by the
bilmem
name of
ama.
Skeleton decided just to put a
Sevmem.
giant stuffed
Link atmayın, link
rabbit
atmayın.
on top of it. People could drive to it and climb around on it and stuff. From Google Maps, it looks pretty menacing. It was put there in 2005 and it was supposed to last quite a while, but it started rotting and decomposing really fast, and by
Niye böyle bir şey yapmışlar ya?
2016 it was pretty much just gone. Nowadays,
Yok
if you try and
olmuş.
visit this rabbit, you won't find it, but you will still find the outline that it left behind. Mars and
Yok
Moon.
olmuş.
Very similarly to Google Earth, Google also has Google Mars and
Google Mars diye bir şey mi var?
Google Moon whales.
Google Ay'da mı var?
Imagine this is just referring to sometimes how you can spot whales on Google Maps. Here's a couple you can see off the coast of Hawaii. Dick Church. In the great state of Illinois, in the city of Dixon, lies the Christian Science Society of Dixon. It doesn't look like a penis. Rainbow plane. Sometimes when low-flying planes are caught on Google Maps, they have this kind of rainbow effect to them. It seems like the reason this happens is because the satellite cameras are capturing red, blue, and green at slightly different times. And so since the plane is moving super fast, it's giving the colors kind of like a warped
çıkartıyormuş.
effect.
Yani kırmızı, yeşil, maviyi farklı zamanlarda kaydediyormuş. Çok az. O da çok hızlı gittiğinden dolayı arkada kalıyormuş.
Google's car pulled over. So what this is probably referring to is if you go into Street View and come into this town called Golly in West Virginia.
LPG'li uçak. LPG'li uçak. Aptal mısınız oğlum siz?
You can see this police car pop out. He follows you for a while. You can see him turn on his lights and then just pull you over. It's hard to tell why this happened if Google's car was
Çevirmeye takılmış.
speeding or maybe
Çevrilmişler pardon.
he thought maybe the camera
Hala da çekmiş ha bu olaylar olurken.
the Google car was like a hazard or something. The murder dock. So in Amsterdam, there's this park called Beatrix Park, and at this park, there's a dock. And for a while on Google Maps, if you were to check out this dock, this is what you would see. It
Oh shit, biri öldürülmüş orada.
kind of looks like someone was murdered, left bleeding, and then drug out onto the dock. That's not what most people think is going on here, though. Most likely what happened here is some guy had a wet dog, and the wet dog went out onto the dock and dripped all over it and just...
Ha, büyük ihtimalle diyor ki ıslak bir köpek yürüdü orada, birinin
The poor
köpeği.
satellite quality made this water on the
Sonra da işte uydu kalitesinden dolayı öyle kötü
dock look
gözüktü
like
diyor.
blood.
Kimse
Masked
ölmemiş
people.
galiba
I think
umarım.
this entry is just supposed to say masked people, and this is some sort of typo. It's probably referring to these masked guys you can find just standing around on this road.
What the
before
fuck,
going.
Purge gibi.
There's no information on this. It's just weird masked people standing out in the middle of Mexico. Kidnapper House. The Ariel Castro kidnappings were a series of kidnappings that took place between 2002 and 2004, where a man by the name of Ariel Castro abducted 3 girls and held them captive in his
3 tane kızı kaçırmış bir adam
These
zamanında.
girls were constantly abused and tortured, and Michelle Knight, who was abducted in
işkence yapmış.
2002, didn't escape until
Sena hoş geldin.
2013. So that's like over 10 years. It's an incredibly messed up story, and this
10 sene boyunca
entry on the
kurtulamamışlar.
iceberg
Çok korkunç
kidnapper
lan.
house is referring to how the house that this all took place in is now blurred out.
Oha, bütün evi Google Maps blurlamış sonra.
Creature on the
Shit.
balcony. Located in France, there's a city called Nancy, and there's this neighborhood that just has an inexplicably blurred out house on Street View. Doesn't really make any sense until
Niye
you
bu
go
evde
back in
blurlu?
time and see what used to be here. Before Google blurred all of this out, you used to be able to see this balcony with this kind of strange alien looking creature
fuck,
type
bu ne?
thing. Now honestly, this thing on the balcony doesn't even look that weird. It totally looks like it could be a mannequin or some sort of Halloween decoration. In fact, some people on Reddit were looking into this, and people were able to find statues that are very
Buymuş.
similar to this
Galiba.
one. What is more weird about it though is how Google approached blurring it out. Because for a long time, you could just come to this spot on Street View and just see it in its entirety, and then that's it. But then a while back, Google decided to just
Sonra bunu blurlamış Google ama.
blur out the weird creature on the balcony. Not everything, not the entire balcony, but just the creature on the balcony itself, nothing else. And then a little
Aynı
bit
ben
after
ya.
that, they did go ahead and then blur out more of the balcony, and now just the entire house is blurred out. It wasn't weird until Google started making it weird, you know? Lady of the North. This entry is just referring to this
Ha?
Giant land sculpture in the UK that's often referred to as the Lady of the North. Giant crab.
Kim çizmiş
So
lan
this entry
onu?
in the iceberg is referring to this image that's been floating around the internet for a while. It shows what looks to be a giant crab.
Aa, kocaman yengeç var bak.
Off of this harbor. It's a nice picture. The original picture is actually taken from Bing Maps, not Google Maps. You can tell this is exactly where they got it from because all the patterns in the sand are exactly the same and all the boats on the dock are at the exact same place. It's a nice picture. Swastika building. So in San Diego, California, there's a naval base, and from up above, one of the buildings on this naval base looks like this. How this building managed to happen is pretty odd, especially considering it was built in the 1960s. I'm not really sure how the architect could have missed out on this. I've seen people say that this building was built this way for lighting or air conditioning reasons, but the 1960s had fairly good lighting and air conditioning solutions. At the time, there must have just been the assumption that no one was ever going to get an aerial view of the building. For a while, people were getting kind of mad at the Navy for having this building, and according to a Time magazine article from 2007, the Navy said that they were going to invest money into this building to make it not look like a swastika anymore, but that was 15 years ago, and the building still
15 sene önce değiştireceklerini falan söylemişler, hala değiştirmemişler.
definitely looks like a swastika. Angel. In Switzerland for a while, there's this road near St. Gallen where you could see what kind of looked like an angel in the sky. Some people also think it looks like a devil and an angel standing next to each other. If you try and visit this spot on Google Maps now though, it's gone. Google must have removed and replaced this street view data. Red Sea. So at first I thought this entry was just referring to the Red Sea, but as far as I can tell, nothing Red Sea related is particularly notable on Google Maps. What it could be referring to is this red lake you can
Kıpkırmızı göl.
find in Baghdad, Iraq.
Irak'taymış. Niye?
No one on the internet seems to be 100% certain why this lake is red, but I've seen people speculate that it could be some sort of algae in the water or it's from sewage. Another idea though is this Times magazine article says one tipster told the tech blog Boing Boing that he was told by a friend that slaughterhouses in Iraq sometimes dump blood into canals. So that's something to think about. Most likely what's going on here is some sort of algae is making the water.
Yani kan diyenler de var ama kan alciler falan da diyorlar ama kasaplar bütün o kanı buraya döküyor falan demiş birileri. Birinin arkadaşı öyle demiş.
Red. An algae known as Dunalaila salina has the ability to turn water a reddish pinkish color.
Algae olabilir
so there's
ya.
a pretty good chance that's what's going on here. Ghost Girl. But before we get into that, I'm happy to announce that today's video is sponsored by Honey Game. Have you ever wanted to make a little extra money?
Ya bu hani güzel program benziyor. Sürekli reklam yapıyor millette. İndirim kuponu falan buluyor.
Cemetery in Texas, there used to be a photosphere, and if you were to look to your right at
GTA 5'teki hayalet kız.
one of the trees, you could spot a girl peeking out from around it. Also, some people see this floaty thing in the background and think it's a ghost or something. A couple people have claimed to have made this photosphere and have just said that it was their daughter who was hiding behind a tree. It's a little bit off-putting once you see it. This photosphere has since been removed from this cemetery, so that could be a little spooky. Man.
Yüzünden oluyor, pembe gol de var.
Efik teşekkür ederim.
Pointing
O al gidir o kadar fazla nasıl olacak?
Probably referring to this thing in Detroit. There's this house in Detroit that's blurred out. Before it was blurred out, there's a bunch of people standing on the porch with
çete varmış oğlum orada. Silahlı çete varmış.
So if you go to this island right here in Japan and go through this spot, this dog will start chasing you. Not really much to it, it's pretty cool. Kazakhstan pentagram. This next entry takes us to Kazakhstan, where there's a giant pentagram etched
What
into
the
the
fuck?
ground. Why there's a
Bu çok korkunç yalnız ha. Kazakistan'daymış. Yalnız bayağı büyük. Bayağı büyük yani. What the fuck? Biraz korkunç ha. Çok büyük çünkü.
pentagram etched into this northern area of Kazakhstan is very
Buradan şeytan çıkacak bir gün böyle. Alevler içinde falan.
weird. You know, there's many theories out there for what this is about. Of course, some people think this is the work of a satanic cult living out in Kazakhstan. I've even seen some people say that this is a defunct surface-to-air missile site, and it's shaped like a pentagram to help with some sort of radar tracking system. These are all very fun ideas. An NBC article from 2014 did an interview with a geologist who lives in this area, and apparently it's an outline of a park made in the form of a star.
Yıldız şeklinde yapılmış işte bir parkın şeymiş.
The article then goes on to say that the star was a popular symbol during the Soviet era.
Sovyet zamanında yıldız popüler bir sembol olduğundan dolayı. Yani pentagram olarak görürüz aslında.
Kazakhstan was part of the former Soviet Union until its dissolution in 1991. So I guess it's a park that was made to look like a star, but since it looks like a star, it also simultaneously looks like a pentagram. Sounds like a good cover-up for a surface-to-air missile site. Sudan lips. This entry is just referring to this geological formation out in Sudan that kind of looks like
dudağa benziyor.
lips. Lost baby. So once again, there's this image that has kind of been around the internet for a while. There's this picture of this baby just alone by itself standing out in front of a Gucci store, and this picture presumably was taken on Google Maps. I've checked every
Tek başına duran bir bebek varmış.
Gucci store on the planet, I think, looking for this baby. Maybe Google has removed it. Maybe this image isn't even real. I could not actually find this on Google Maps though. If you find this on Google Maps and it exists, put a
ama böyle bir şeyi Google Maps'te görememiş.
link in the comments. I'll definitely pin it. Donkey killed by Google's car. Donkey killed by Google's car is referring to if you go to this road in Botswana, you can come up onto this donkey and it kind of looks like you hit it with your car. This has been here for a while and people were accusing Google of actually hitting a donkey with the Google car. So in 2013, Google actually ended up making an official statement where they showed extra pictures of this donkey.
Öldürmemiş, tamam, öldürmemiş. Google ekstra fotoğraf yayınlamış öldürmedik diye.
Event, and it turns out they didn't actually hit the donkey. Donkey kind of just happened to
aptal eşek. Şov yapmış orada, şov numaracı eşek.
roll over at a very specific
Düşmüş orada bilerek, bayılmış. Google'a şey yapıyor ya.
time. Ice ship. This entry is likely referring to what looks like a frozen ship on an island off of Antarctica. Google Maps will measure it to be over 400 feet long. The ship doesn't seem to match up with any known missing vessels, but maybe it's some person's private yacht that went undocumented, or maybe the government lost a ship and decided to keep it classified or something. Even the website Snopes, a website that is dedicated to debunking conspiracy theories and false information, doesn't really have a great explanation for this.
Çözememişler bunun ne olduğunu. Hiçbir gemiye ve kayıtlardaki hiçbir gemiye benzemiyormuş. Amerika'nın acaba böyle şey demediği bir gemi mi falan ya da birinin özel yatımı falan diyorlar.
Could be made that it's just some sort of ice formation, but also it's
ya da buz sadece diyorlar.
Looks like a ship. Blonde tourist legs. Once again, one of those pictures that have been around for a while. It's a picture of this blonde tourist walking in front of the Chichen Itza ruins. Somehow when this picture was being taken, something must have happened that make her knees look backwards. Since this screenshot was taken, Google must have updated the data around these ruins because you can't see this girl anymore. Axe murder. Streets in Longton, England. There's a bunch of blurred out people on the side of this road. Luckily, people were able to get screenshots of this before it got blurred out. It looks like the scene of a murder. An axe murder.
Biri öldürülürken çekmiş. Nasıl ya?
Because they have axes.
Gitgide derinleşiyor değil mi şimdi iceberg ondan
dolayı? A couple different
bu.
news outlets reported on this, and in case you were wondering, it's not real. These guys are just playing a bit. Ghost.
Ha, gerçek değilmiş ama tiyatro yapıyorlarmış. Yani RP.
Man. So this entry is very open-ended. There are many different examples of people seeing things on Google Maps that they think look like ghosts. Some examples being this guy on this beach in Australia that's kind of just phasing out of reality. And in New York, there's a street with a bunch of ghost people and ghost cars on it. Oak Bay snake.
Hayalet kamyoneti ya.
There's this supposed screenshot of Oak Bay in New Zealand taken from Google Maps. In this picture, you can see what kind of looks to be a giant snake moving through the water. According to the Daily Mail, in 2014, an engineer by the name of Peter Watira took this screenshot of Google Maps after he noticed the strange wake in the water. It's kind of strange because typically boats won't leave behind this kind of wake. They tend to leave behind some white froth, and it's usually in an overall different shape. This has led some people to speculate that it was a giant sea snake or sea monster. I've even seen some people think it could have been a giant oarfish. It's very interesting, although also it is very possible for a smaller, faster watercraft to leave behind a wave like this. Broken face. This entry is referring to a picture that was taken off of Google Maps of a broken face statue or something. You can find it in a Dutch city known as The Hague. It's part of an art museum out there. Escaped prisoner. So in South Africa, near the city of Johannesburg.
Kaçan Bu gerçekten çok komik ya. Hapishaneden kaçan adamı çekmiş.
You can find this guy in full orange just walking down this really isolated street, and it kind of looks like this person could be an escaped prisoner. I really wish Google Maps captured a prisoner escaping, but the odds are it's not. There are really no prisons near this area, and if you go down the road, you
ama oralarda hapishane yok diyor yani. Öyle bir şey mümkün değilmiş.
can actually catch this guy again hanging out with some other
takılıyormuş gene, sonra gene
not to mention his orange suit clearly says CW.
CHP yazıyor.
and there's no prisons that match up with this acronym. The only place that seems to match up with CWF is this engineering place nearby. So maybe this guy just happened to be wearing his engineering work clothes one day and they kind of look like prisoner stuff. Van on fire. In Toronto, Canada, you can look at this flaming van parked out in front of someone's house. And you can also check out this burning van in Brazil. Plane in the forest. So there are a couple different examples of planes on Google Maps you can find that are just in forests. They seem very out of place, but most of the time they're just decommissioned passenger planes that have been bought by private owners to be used as display pieces. There are more interesting specific cases of people finding planes on Google Maps, and we'll be talking about one later down on the iceberg. Gas mask guy. This one could be talking about one of two things. It could be referring to this picture of a guy in a gas mask crouched off to the side of the road. Once again, this picture was supposedly taken off of Google Maps. I couldn't find specifically where on Google Maps this is at, but I'd imagine it's real. Alternatively though, what this could be referring to is this photosphere you can access near the Chernobyl disaster site in Ukraine, where you can view just a huge pile of gas masks surrounding this chair with a doll sitting on it with a
Çernobil'e bile böyle çekilen fotoğraflara bakabiliyorsun.
Just a little bit unsettling, you know. Zura Bibajan. So if you come to this neighborhood in Worcester, England, you can see this blurred out thing next to a car, and for some reason Google Street View won't let you get up next to it. Street View just is like pushing you past this blurred spot. Well, luckily people did get screenshots of what was going on here before Google decided to blur it out. There was what looked like a dead person on the side of the road. That's what a lot of people thought for a while, but of course it's this
ölü biri sanıyorlarmış ama ölü biri değilmiş.
Girl by the name of Azura Bibajan, and according to this Daily Mail article, they interviewed this girl and she was just playing.
Arkadaşıyla oynarken düşmüş, ölü taklidi yapmış orada sonra.
Dead.
Kendi açıklamış kız. Ben ölmedim lan demiş.
And now it looks like she's dead on the side of the road. Body found 20.
Ölü Oğlum çok efsanevi değil mi ya, böyle sonsuza kadar Google Maps'te ölü taklidi yaparken duruyorsun.
2 years later. So the story goes, a man by the name of William Moult went missing in 1997. He was out at a nightclub at night, and the last heard of him, he was calling his girlfriend from the nightclub to say that he was driving back to their home in Wellington, Florida.
Adam 1998'de sevgilisini aramış en son club'tan giderken, eve dönüyorum demiş.
He never made it home that night.
Sonra eve hiç ulaşamamış.
He just disappeared. There's an investigation into his disappearance, but no one could find him. No one was sure what happened to him. That was until 22 years later when in
siktir.
2019 a submerged car was spotted on Google Maps at a pond
2019'da batık bir araba bulunmuş sonra Google Maps'te.
Where William Moult used to live. Shortly after this car was spotted, they pulled this car out of this lake and William Moult's skeleton was
Adamın iskeleti varmış son içinde.
Still inside. He crashed his car into the lake and then suffocated, and then he wasn't found until 22 years later.
22 sene. Hop. 22 sene sonra bulunmuş. Çok kötü lan.
In 2009, a 14-year-old boy by the name of Jose Barrera was
2009 yılında 14 mü?
Richmond, California. There's this high crime residential area in Richmond, California that's sometimes called the Iron Triangle, and this was where he was murdered at. The reason this is on this iceberg is because Google Maps satellites managed to capture Jose Barrera's body being left by some train tracks. Of course,
ne? Çocuğun cesedi çıkmış. Yani cesedinin fotoğrafı çekilmiş. Ama güncellemiş Google Maps.
Google received complaints from Jose Barrera's family. They wanted it to get removed and it since has been. It was pretty ridiculous though because you could see Jose Barrera laying there. And the picture captures the very moment that police officers pull up to the scene. Children.
Polislerin tam geldiği anda çekilmiş.
Guns. There are
Abi Google Maps çok ilginç ya.
Different examples of children on Google Maps holding guns. An example being at this neighborhood in Chicago, you can see this. Based on the way people around him are reacting.
Bir tane oyun vardı, seni Google Maps'te random bir yere atıyordu, sen de orayı buluyordun. Aynen öyle olmuş bir gün. Gerçekten iğrenç bir hayat. Mental.
Kötü bir şakayla karışık bir şeydi bu.
GeoGuess. Another example you can find is a suburban area in South Africa.
Silahlı çocuklar var oğlum.
Kids walking and one of them looks to be holding a gun. Is it a real gun? Probably not, but it's hard to say for sure. Injury cow.
Gerçek silah değildir tabii.
Cow limping across the highway with an injury. As far as I can tell, there is no information on the internet where this actually took place.
Sakat inek.
Marmal. And if you look up at one of the houses, it looks like there's a guy hanging from the roof. When this was first discovered, a lot of people actually reported it to law enforcement, but
Fuck.
It's actually just a puppet. The people living
Gerçek insan
at this
değilmiş.
house have gone on
Kuklaymış.
record saying that it's a prank. New Baltimore
Şakaymış. Gene birileri şaka yapmış. Öyleymiş. Öyle reportlanmış sonra. The fuck.
ghost town. There's a town in the state of New York called
Korktum.
New Baltimore, and prior to Google updating the data in 2016,
Oğlum millet niye böyle manyak şeyler yapıyor? Biri gidiyor ölü taklidi yapıyor. Biri gidiyor şey asıyor falan. Psikopat garip böyle şaka mı olur lan? Kimi şakalayacaksın ki? Ya komik şaka aslında değil mi? Öyle annen geliyor. Çok kötü bir şaka. Hayır komik bir şaka da değil ya. Herkes de şakacı amına koyayım. Böyle kendi kıyafetlerini giydirip balkondan aşağı sarkıttığını düşünsene. Çok kötü bir şaka yani. Kalp krizi falan geçirir ki onu gören insan.
the street
Ölüyor sonra değil mi şaka yaptığın kişi?
view just had this weird ghostly effect to it. Everything was warped and there was a grainy effect on pretty much everything. New
Hayalet
Baltimore's
kasaba
a
diyorlar
small
buraya.
town in the state of New York with a population not much more than 3,000. As I've stated earlier, this phenomenon has been patched out of Google Maps, but there never really was much of an explanation for it. Malaysian plane. So earlier we talked about people finding planes on Google Maps, but this is one of the more interesting cases. So if you didn't already know, in March of 2014, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 went missing on a flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing.
2004'te Malezya uçağı kayboluyor.
There were 227 passengers on board and 12 crew
270 kişi varmış.
Until this day, no one really
227 mi
knows for sure
dedi?
what happened to
Anlamadım.
this airplane. They're not sure if it was hijacked or if it was some sort
Ne
of
olduğunu
mechanical
bilen yok
malfunction.
olmuş
They just
uçak.
lost communication with the flight and it disappeared along with everyone on board. They never found the black box. Well, in 2018, an unidentified plane was
2017'de
found in this Cambodian jungle on Google Maps.
burada
And a number of
ormanda
people
çıkmış.
theorized that this could be Malaysian Airlines flight.
Bu Malezya uçağı diyebiliyor yani.
Flight 370. Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 was a Boeing 777, and this plane that's in this jungle seems to be a
Tam olarak uçağın boyutları
very
eşleşiyormuş.
similar length to that of a Boeing 777. Additionally, reports by the Malaysian Transport Ministry show that prior to losing contact with the plane, it was recorded to be
gidip
in
bakmamışlar
Cambodian
mı?
airspace. The most common belief is that Malaysian Flight 370 on its way to Beijing somehow turned around and ended up crashing in the Indian Ocean, but the exact location of its crash site is still not confirmed at all. So some people think that this might be Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. Probably the biggest problem with this theory is that debris from the plane has reportedly been found in Tanzania and other places in Africa, which kind of puts a damper on this theory because if the plane landed in this
Ama uçağın parçaları Tanzanya'da falan bulunmuş. Yani bu teori biraz yalan olabilirmiş.
forest in Cambodia, there's really no way debris would have gone
İmkansızmış yani oradan oraya.
and then onto the coast of Africa. But I guess some people have a conspiracy against the Malaysian government and they think that they planted debris in Tanzania to kind of close
Ama diyorlarmış ki Malezya hükümeti oralara bile şey koydular. Şey yapmak için.
the
Hala
case. The
bulunamamış,
Malaysian
evet, çok.
government didn't want to admit that
Oğlum bunları gerçekten kim keşfediyor? Ben de merak ediyorum. Bence böyle manyaklar var. Cidden Google Maps'te oturup böyle bakıyorlar.
they couldn't find the plane.
Yo deniz dalga da götürmez demişler. Bu kadar
So they ended up
zormuş.
planting debris in Tanzania. Even if this plane isn't Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, it's still a really weird thing. There's not really any reason that this should be out in the middle of this jungle.
Ama evet Malezya uçağı değilse bile bu ormanın içinde onun durması da çok saçma ki. Kimse niye gitmiyor ki? Bu uçak ne diye mesela.
Not any reasons that I could really find, at least. The guy who originally found this on Google Maps is a man by the name of Ian Wilson. Apparently
Bu
he's
adam
actually
bulmuş.
tried to go on a trek
Gitmeyi de denemiş oraya adam.
out into the Cambodian jungle to get to this airplane.
Oğlum manyak işi. İnanılmaz bir aktivite. Uçak buluyorsun Google Maps'te, sonra Mıgon'la araştırmaya gidiyorsun oraya. What the fuck?
And try and do an analysis on it and see where it's from and why it's there. But I guess on this trek he went on, it got so dangerous that he had to turn back. He says
Ama çok tehlikeli olmuş. R atmış. Batan gemi, teşekkür ederim onun için. Öpüyorum. Hoş geldin. Çok teşekkürler.
he's trying to go on another
Hobi lan.
expedition out to this plane. So until anyone gets out there, we really have no idea what's going on with this plane. End of the world sign. This entry is referring to this highway road in the Mojave Desert. This highway just comes to an end in the middle of nowhere, and there's a sign that just says end.
End.
It's pretty odd, and screenshots of how it used to look are even more odd. Google has removed the Street View data for when it looked like this, so you can't
Cehenneme gider diyor burada.
see this anymore. Now it just looks like this. Dogman. I'd say this is probably referring to one of two things. This could be referring to this Daily Star article from 2019 where they
Dogman,
report
köpek
on a
adam.
Reddit post that was made. I think this Reddit post has since been deleted because I cannot find it. On this Reddit post that was apparently posted on r/cryptids, a guy by the name of The Lone Hunter attached a video of him on Google Street View, and he seemingly spots a dogman in the woods.
köpek
This
adam
right
ne lan?
here is what he thinks is the dogman, I think. There might be something there, but it kind of also just looks like a bunch of shadows. It looks
fuck,
pretty
köpek
normal.
adam?
On Google Maps, I was able to find the street that this picture was taken from, but I can't find the exact angle or spot where you can see the dogman thing. There's also the possibility that this entry is just not referring to this at all, too. This entry might not be actually referring to a dog man, but instead it's referring to one of the many different funny dog and man related things on Google Maps. A lake in an island in a lake in an island. There's a couple different places where you can see something like this, but probably the best one is in the Philippines. You can find this island in a lake on an island.
Oha, gölün içinde, adanın içinde göl.
The best one is in the Philippines. You can find this island in a lake on an island in a lake on an island. Man jumps in Google's
What?
car. This entry kind of left me with the impression that there was going to be some story out there of someone breaking
Şaka
into a
gibi.
Google Street View car, although it doesn't really seem like anything like this has happened or at least been documented. This could be referring to this thing in Poland where you can see a guy on the Google Street View car. I know jumping on a car and in a car are different, but this is
Abi Türkiye'de vardı bir tane böyle. Bir tane Türkiye'de vardı böyle. Adamın suratı vardı.
This is the closest thing to this entry that I think I can find. R. Pref Oscar Cunha. Basically, in the Brazilian state of Florianópolis.
Dur ya, o var mı ya? Google Maps adam suratı yazsam çıkar mı? Shit. Ya bir tane fotoğraf vardı. Bildiğin Türkiye'de, İzmir'de mi, İstanbul'da mı? Adamın suratı vardı böyle. Bir sokak öteye gidiyorum, adamın suratı böyle bir şey tamir etmeye falan çalışıyordu. God damn it. Bulamadım. Hatırlamıyorum onu.
There's a section of streets that had some really weird properties for a while. For a while, if you were to move in certain ways and do specific things in this area, you would be able to go into this black, dark void thing, and you could move around in it a little bit, and you could look at these weird shapes and figures in the darkness. It's interesting because there's almost like an out-of-bounds glitch on Google Maps. It doesn't seem like you can perform this glitch anymore, and it seems like this area of Florianópolis has mostly been fixed. I've tried following all the steps in the videos that show how to do this, and it doesn't seem to work anymore. I'd imagine as Google Street View has been updated and more street data has been compiled, glitch just doesn't work anymore because there's a bigger pool of street data to pull from. It's also completely possible that Google just went in and fixed this glitch thing. This area in Florianópolis though still isn't perfect. There are these
Oğlum bu sürekli oluyor ki Türkiye'de gezinirken.
weird glitchy kind of effects that will come over Street View if you
Buna niye bu kadar şaşırıyor? Amerika'da falan olmuyor galiba. Bir gelsin, bir Keçiören'e insin, bir gezinsin orada.
stand in certain spots. And the more you look at that weird demonic shaped thing in
Bu
the
korkunçmuş ama böyle garip bir...
you can
Çok korktum. Güzel video. Bu ne lan? Bu da mı Google Maps'ten?
legged cat. This entry is referring to this picture of a two-legged cat. This picture's been around for a while now, and it's kind of a meme, I guess. I guess a lot of people were under the impression that this picture is from Google Maps, like it was a picture of a cat
Değilmiş galiba,
ripped
dur.
off of Google Street View, and it looks like that because of like some glitch or something. But it's actually just not. It's actually just a Photoshop picture of a cat.
Ne, gerçekmiş, Photoshop'muş. Nice. Evet. 10 numara videoydu bu arada. Güzel videoydu. Evet, şimdi videonun abone dilenme kısmına geçtik. NASA'dan aldığım verilere göre videoları izleyen babaannelerin %50'si abone olmadıklarından dolayı yeni videolardan haberdar olamıyorlar. Yani bir adam akıllı evlat ol da git şu babaannene abone yap.